Welcome into a special edition Hartford Wolfpack Report brought to you by your New York Rangers beat reporters Lou Orlando, joined by Jack Warner. Jack and I, on Thanksgiving Eve, Wednesday, went up to Hartford. We saw the Wolfpack play the Providence Bruins. They won 6-4. We get to talk to Brennan Othmann, interim head coach Steve Smith. All around great experience. We'll get into everything that we saw, everything that we talked about, and some major Hartford Wolfpack stories. But first, Jack, how's everything? How was that trip for you? You got to house me?
Yeah, I thought that trip was really fun because, you really got to see probably the most interesting thing Connecticut has to offer besides pizza.
And that's
Full
Bird
disclosure-
Code Chicken Sandwich.
Bird Code Chicken Sandwich, and that's the other one, Bird Code Hot Chicken in West Hartford. I got to take Lou, one of my favorite restaurants of all time. But no, it was fun. Lou met my grandparents, he's met my parents before, but
your dog?
got to have dinner.
Some good pictures
Met
of
my
your
dog, so it was a great time. But no, it was really cool because, again, we put in a lot of hours going to watch this team at the big stage up at Madison Square Garden, and a lot of late nights going into covering that team. And I think it's just a really neat experience to get to go see, the program that produces the future of the very team we cover. So I thought it was a great time. And I thought it was fun because, we read Vince Mercogliano religiously. We've mentioned it on this, these segments before. And, he wrote about Brennan Othmann, who we really wanted to go, get some material from right before we were supposed to, which I know was kind of man. But, we got to read a little bit going into it about how he was in a bit of a goal drought, which we'll get into in a minute. So it was also really cool, I think, that we went in, trying to get some material from Brennan Othmann and also knowing that he was kind of in the midst of a scoring drought. And then we got to go to the game where he broke said, scoring drought.
Right, let's get into the headliner, because the headliner is Brennan Othmann. If you're a Rangers fan and you're watching the Wolfpack or you're concerned with their AHL team, you're looking for one thing, and it's Brennan Othmann. First-round pick, a guy that played really well in the preseason and, by all accounts, could get called up to the NHL team this year, especially as fans continue to complain about the play on the right side of the line for the NHL New York Rangers. But as you said, Brennan Othmann's a guy that's been in a little bit of a rut ever since the season opener. Had a great first game, 2 goals on the road, and ever since then it had been a goalless streak, 15 games without a goal going into that game against Providence. He scores a goal. It's a game-tying goal, a breakaway, beautiful shot. His first goal at Hartford, so that was pretty cool in front of the home fans. And I think something that you had kind of been waiting to see for Brennan Othmann, right? He's a guy that's supposed to be a goal scorer, and really at every level of his career has been a goal scorer. To see him go through a drought, a little odd.
It is a little odd, but I think what took some of the pressure off of not seeing necessarily the goal production you want to see out of him was, it was pretty obvious because it's noted everywhere that he still was producing on power plays at 5-on-5, whether it be assists, whether it be just making plays on the boards. He's stressed multiple times that he just wants to be a contributor, especially as he's so young and he's getting some of his first full season reps as a member of the Hartford Wolfpack. So I think while again we're expecting a lot of scoring out of him, and seeing a drought like that is a bit concerning, it was nice to not have the problem of him just not producing. It was just seeing him not score the amount of goals I think he's privy to scoring.
And it was cool. Our very own Jack Warner sitting across from me right now after that game. You asked Brennan, hey, is that a goal that puts a little bit of wind into your sails?
Yeah, it's good. Obviously, I mean, I've been kind of in a slump there for 15 games, I guess now, and but still is playing good hockey and finding a way to contribute on the board somehow. If it's getting an assist on the power play or making a good defensive play, I think I've been trying to kind of not worry too much about the goal scoring. It's going to come. I've a lot of older guys in that room say it's a long year, and it is a long year. I mean, we've only played 16 games, so it's gonna come, like they said, and it ended up working out a little bit tonight.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed his answer to that question just because, again, I think he was clearly relieved to get one on the board, get another goal, especially his first one at home, as you mentioned, and in such a big spot. I mean, it was a game-tying goal. But he put the focus elsewhere. It wasn't, he has stressed so many times how much he learns from the older personnel on the team. And I really did like and appreciate how he pivoted to just producing any way that he can, and knowing that, all right, you know what, if the goals aren't being scored at the frequency that I want them to be, then I'm going to need to produce elsewhere. And I think that was the perfect answer because he didn't really make it. I asked him a question fully about himself, and I think he found a way to address how he was feeling, but also fully put the team before himself in his reply.
And that's a nice segue into my question, which I asked directly after, which is, especially for a guy that's a goal scorer, how do you kind of go through a rut like that? Listen, we kind of talk about it because I think we're seeing it. We saw it happen, and then having Mika Zibanejad at the NHL level went through a little bit of a down streak, and then had that big game against Philly that kind of sparked him. But guys that are goal scorers, it's hard to it's one thing to say, hey, I can't think about it. It's another thing to actually do it. And we talk about this Hartford team and all the veterans that are on this team: Brodzinski, Riley Nash, Alex Belzile. And it was kind of cool when I asked him about, hey, how do you handle a rut like this? He gave, as you said, and kind of elaborated on, all the credit to the veteran guys, and particularly Riley Nash.
That I haven't scored in a while, and I wasn't too concerned about it. Obviously, it got frustrating at times, but I keep saying about this veteran team that we have and the leadership that we have in the room, and they keep telling me to stick with it. And really close with Riley Nash, and he's kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and I've a lot of respect for him. I made a mistake saying he's played over 1,000 games, where he's actually played over 900 games. He's giving me that a little bit, but he keeps telling me every day to stick with it, regardless of the result. And he's an outstanding person. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for the older guys and Riley, and they've been doing an outstanding job, not just with myself, but a lot of the younger guys on the team as well.
So, it's nice to see I think there's a reason that you have veterans on an AHL team, right? A lot of time the focus goes to developing the youth. You need guys like Riley Nash and Johnny Brodzinski that have been at the NHL level before to guide these guys. And, Jack, you asked him, hey, does a goal like that put wind in your sails? Apparently it has, because 2 days later against Belleville, he puts up 2 goals, gets a power play goal. So it seems like Brennan Othmann, sometimes all you need is one. You just need to see one go in. It seems like that sparks some really good play from him.
Well, and it's good to see him start to heat up right now, especially because as you head into sort of the thick of the season, Rangers just took down the Boston Bruins yesterday and are now, just by general record, the best team in the NHL. But, you're just moving out of the early part of the season. We're just getting a little too late to where you can say it's still early. Soon enough, you're getting into the thick of the season where bodies are going to start to get tired. I don't want health to become an issue, but health could very well become an issue. So for him to get hot now, hopefully this is something he can maintain, because this definitely helps his case of a call-up eventually this season, which was already, expected by a lot of people. But I think him heating up now and sort of getting on the right track as this, as we get into December already, which is crazy to think about, I don't think that could be any more properly timed.
And he's talked to Vince about kind of how important it is for him to deal with the highs and the lows at the AHL level. And I think, there were a lot of people clamoring for Othmann after his red-hot preseason. Let's get this guy on the roster. I think you see the logic behind let's get him at least half a season in the AHL and have him go through a lot of this development. And I think, you're seeing him face some adversity at the AHL level. You're now starting to see him overcome it. I think there's still a lane for him to make this NHL roster. Right now, the Rangers are playing about as good of hockey as you can play. Blake Wheeler's starting to play better on that right side. Kakko still struggling a little bit. But, if the Rangers feel comfortable about Brennan Othmann, they're going to call him up. I don't think that there's going to be a blockage here for Othmann, even if the Rangers are playing well. Maybe if they're continuing to play like insane hockey and you don't want to mess with anything, but I still think that there is a lane for Othmann to come up this season.
I also think that the way the Rangers brought him onto the scene was actually the perfect method for him personally, just because, he starts off the preseason at Madison Square Garden. Maybe they're not sold out games, but he's playing at the NHL level in the preseason at MSG. Kind of gets to take in the sights and sounds, the luxurious locker room, the teammates, the ambiance of the arena. And then he's one of the last guys to get called back down. He probably saw it coming, as a lot of people did, but he did play extremely well. So I do think him starting up, playing in the preseason with the Rangers and then getting sent down for the regular season play, there's got to be a way in which, yes, he's still playing his favorite sport for an income, but that had to sting a little, and that had to probably, we had a great time, and no shade to any facilities. The XL Center doesn't really have the same ring. I know we got
There's a lot of history there.
We got to, a lot of history there. We got to take a lot of laps around that building. The XL Center doesn't have the same ring as MSG. Case in point. So I think starting him off on the Rangers this season, in the preseason portion, seeing what he can do, him kind of getting a little bit of that, that sting, that unfortunate news of, hey, you got to go back down and prove yourself a little bit more. I don't think you can shape a player, especially a highly, acclaimed prospect like him, any better than having that be the start of his career.
And from what we in the media have seen so far, it legitimately seems like a great kid,
He
great
seems like
head
the
and his
nicest guy.
shoulders, and so I think there's a lot of reason to be excited if you're a Rangers fan. I'm sure that a lot of Rangers fans will be keeping tabs on him throughout the year. I think another thing to bring up if we're talking about the Hartford Wolfpack is just how good Johnny Brodzinski has been, right? This is a guy that was up on the NHL team last year, saw some fourth-line minutes. Right now leads the AHL with 25 points, averaging 1.56 points per game, 7 straight games with a point, 6 straight games with multi-point games. Johnny Brodzinski has been phenomenal. He's been the top liner for the Wolfpack this year. The Wolfpack have played exceptional hockey. I think a lot of that has to do with Johnny Brodzinski.
Yeah, and I think his experience does work volumes. Again, he's one of the members of the more veteran core of this team. But no, I mean, it felt like wherever he was on the ice, the night we saw him on Wednesday against Providence, it just felt like wherever he was on the ice, points were following him. It was a 3-point night for him. And 7 straight games with a point, 2 points in his 2+ points in his past 6 games. So, he's someone who is just there to generate, and it's his job is simple, and he's done it well.
Brennan Othmann in our post game on Wednesday kind of talked about not just the player that Brodzinski is on the ice. Brodzinski set up a goal for Othmann in that game, was one of the direct assists on Ottmann's goal.
The biggest assist of the game, really, because that's the game-tying goal. It was a huge momentum shift. You kind of saw the ice completely tilt to Hartford at that point. It was the biggest assist of the game.
He found Othmann on that breakaway goal, but has also been, as Ottmann's talked about, the older guys, has been an impressive leadership guy in that locker room.
Johnny, I've said before, I think Johnny's a top 5 player in the American League, if not one of the top 3 players in the American League. I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, and he makes an outstanding pass, and I just tried to bury it the best I could.
It's pretty awesome to see what Brodzinski's doing. He's playing really elite hockey. It's hard to argue that he's not the best AHL player right now. I mean, the stats kind of back it up, but he's been on an absolute tear, and maybe you expect this a little bit from a guy that's been in the NHL before, but there are a lot of guys that have played in the NHL before in the AHL, and they're not all doing what Johnny Brodzinski's doing right now. So I think it's unfortunate when you look at the Rangers roster that even with Hedl out, they've kind of elected to save some cap. They're not having a backup forward that they're scratching, and I'm not sure you'd want to scratch Brodzinski anyway. Probably less of a lane for Brodzinski to come up this year unless there's an injury, and so that's a little bit of a tough conversation, but man, is he a great presence to have down there.
No, absolutely, and I think that is one of the tough things you run into is, he's someone that you would rather have play in Hartford than rot in New York. Mm-hmm. And I think, we keep harping on the fact that he's also very important just as a veteran presence. And I think there's some strategy to keeping him in the AHL just for that as well, where you're not going to call him up just for him to be a nightly scratch with the New York Rangers. So it's he's producing for the Hartford Wolfpack, which is great. And then the other thing is, like we just showed a few seconds ago, Brennan Othmann, has a lot of respect for Brodzinski. And I feel like that is a very, very valuable thing to have in your veteran core, that your younger prospects who really are the future of your team are feeling so guided and so secure as having a presence like Brodzinski as a teammate.
The price to pay of depth is that you're going to have tough conversations and tough decisions where, at the beginning of the year, Jimmy Vesey and Tyler Pitlick are fighting for playing time in the fourth line, and obviously the Hedl injury has opened up time for both of them to play right now, but when Hedl comes back and he's skating again, that's going to be a roster battle that happens where, yeah, you have guys that are talented enough to play on the NHL rosters. Johnny Brodzinski is undoubtedly talented enough to get fourth-line minutes on a number of NHL rosters. Unfortunately, right now, the New York Rangers don't seem to be one of those rosters.
Right.
I think let's wrap around a little bit. And, we saw a lot of players. We got a lot of storylines. I think we picked a good game to go to. We went to this Hartford Providence game, Mac Hollowell, one of the defensemen on this Rangers team, coming back from an injury after missing 5 games for Hartford. He's a guy that got NHL experience last year with Toronto, and he's been an integral part of what Hartford's done this year. And so to have him come back, he gets 4 points in that game, really had a big impact. And we talked to interim head coach Steve Smith. He talks about just what Mac Hollowell brings to their team when he's out there.
Well, he's a stabilizer for our D for sure. He's a good player. He adds some energy. He just transports pucks. He gets back for the puck quickly. He gets the puck out of our zone, and it does make a big difference for our team. We spend less time in our end when he's on the ice.
Yeah, and again, I mean, as a first game coming out of injury, which again, that's what I thought was cool about the game that we chose to go to, and obviously we didn't know that, but like there were just so many good stories that came out of it. Like we had Othmann ending the goal drought, and then you had Hollowell. That was his first game back after the injury, 4 points upon hitting the ice coming back from injury. I mean, dude just knows how to generate. It was really good to see him back, and not only that, but his first game back, and he looked like he hadn't missed a beat.
Oh, he was phenomenal. The goal that he has, or the assist that he has to set up Henriksen at the end of the game and tie it 1-1. I mean, that's just a phenomenal dish, and it put the puck in a perfect spot for Henriksen to deflect it into an open net. But you watch Hollowell, and 25 years old, a little bit of NHL experience, so I think you can see that when he's out there. But just such a sharp skater. You get some of it from what Coach Smith talked about, but to me, just seems so good defensively for a guy that I think might be a little bit undersized for the NHL level, just a 5'10" guy, but really sharp, seems to have good offensive ability, can control the puck, was very active in the offense, in the power play. Like Hollowell was a guy that, again, you talk about the Rangers' depth. I'm not sure where the lane is for him, but playing exceptional hockey right now, and I think a guy that Hartford definitely needs, and God forbid Rangers run into a couple injuries, I think a guy you'd be excited to see up in the NHL roster because he seems to be playing at a real mature level right now.
Right, and again, I think someone, like if those injury troubles, God forbid they were to occur, the first people that you're going to look to are obviously the ones preferably who have had the NHL experience, him being one of them. Granted, it was minimal, but have at least had some semblance of NHL experience. He had great command of the puck. He wasn't giving away the puck very much. It seemed as though he was always in great control. I really liked what I saw from him, and I really am happy to see him back healthy and back firing on all cylinders.
Because one of the things, especially I look for when you're watching an AHL game, is, hey, how active are you? How loud are you when you're on the ice? Am I noticing you every shift? And Hollowell was a guy that, when he was out there, made his presence felt, created a lot of plays, did a lot of good things in his own zone where I felt like he had a really good two-way game, and that's something that he's been doing when he's been healthy this season. It's a 3-game point streak right now for Hollowell. Another guy I want to get into, this is a 2022 second-round pick, Adam Sakura, the youngest guy on the Hartford Wolfpack, just 19 years old, and probably not an elite point producer, but again, another guy that felt like when he was out there, we noticed him.
Sorry, yeah.
No,
and I think it spoke just more volumes to just the kind of game he had and the way that he commands himself on the ice. Is that he recorded 1 point. It was an assist. It was a secondary assist. It was actually on the goal we were just mentioning, the Henriksen goal. But no, he was someone who looked really powerful on the boards. He was someone who looked a lot more mature. You would never know, I think, for his age that he was as young as he is, because he really looked like he belonged out there. He was somebody who always was having another one who had really good command of the puck whenever it was in his possession. I mentioned before we actually got over here to the studio, I thought one of the cooler plays that we saw the whole night was Providence. They tried to clear, and he made this sort of lunge right at the blue line to steal it and just slap it right back into right back behind the net in the ozone. And it just felt like, that obviously didn't result in a goal, and it didn't result in really anything monumental. In fact, I feel kind of random bringing it up, but it's just those sort of plays where, like, he kept applying pressure, and that sort of thing stood out to me where, like, those guys are eventually going to make that play when the right guy is there. Those guys are going to make that play when someone's waiting there. He knew that, that puck was getting cleared, and he knew he needed to get there and just keep applying the pressure and force it deeper into the zone.
And so funny you said, like, mature for his age, right? To me, he's he looks like the youngest guy on the ice in all of the right ways, in the sense that he looks hungrier than everyone else out there, right? At the NHL level, we talk about sometimes you call up a rookie because they've got that hunger. They've never been there before, and they get on the ice, and it's like, man, this kid's giving his all every shift, and that's what he looks like. But he's also got that maturity where he doesn't look like he's making the mistakes that a lot of the youngest guys on the ice tend to make. And I've got this really cool quote from Steve Smith that Vince Bercogliano got when he went up that week to cover the team. Steve Smith saying, he's the energy bunny. The players love him. Guys that he plays against, I'm sure, will learn to hate him very quickly. And if you're a Rangers fan, that's a quote you love. That screams New York Rangers guy, right? And so when I look at a guy like Adam Sekura, that 7 points through 18 games, maybe not going to be a consistent point producer, I'm not sure that he needs to be, because every team needs guys that are just going to play gritty and tough. I mean, look at what Will Cooley's doing right now. Will Cooley is not a point per game player right now, but there's not a single Rangers fan that would complain about what you're getting from Will Cooley, because you're getting maximum effort, you're getting playmaking, you're getting excellent defense in his own end. To me, Adam Sekura is a guy that can do that, I think, at the NHL level. I'm not sure that he's necessarily ready to make the leap just yet, but I think that he's more NHL ready than the Rangers initially expected, and I would put him ahead of a lot of guys that we've heard about the last couple of years. I think Adam Sekura is a guy that I think his game translates to the NHL level a lot more than some of the skill guys that we've probably heard about the last couple of years.
Yeah, and again, I think one of the things that is nice with Sekura is, again, we're just talking about how fundamentally sound he is. I'm going to use one of Othmann's quotes that we mentioned earlier. A lot of times, like as he said, the scoring will come. That was one of the things that he said. A lot of times people, and granted there are players who never end up becoming like very efficient scorers, but sometimes becoming a scorer is also something that just comes with more reps. He's a 2022 draft pick. He is brand spanking new. So there are certain ways in which he obviously needs more time to develop. Like we mentioned, is he projectable to eventually be an NHL call-up? Yes. Right now, no. There's time for him to develop. I think he could eventually become a scorer, but whether or not he does, I have no reason to believe anything other than him projecting as eventually a reliable third or fourth line guy on an NHL roster, whether it be the Rangers or whether he ends up in another city when he gets that opportunity.
I think to wrap this up, just do some quick hitters if you're wondering, just updates on AHL guys. Bobby Trevino is a guy that I think had been, especially among the media, wondering musings about whether or not he was going to get a call up at some point this year. I think that
was some
was
whispers about
before that people really realized that the Rangers were shaping up to be a powerhouse. Trevino's off to a slow start, 3 points in 12 games. Smaller frame, 5'7". I'm not sure that his game is ready at all yet. He looks to me like a guy that needs a lot more development, that he doesn't look anywhere close to being ready to play at the NHL level. I like what I've seen from Adam Emstrom and Matt Remp. Two really big guys. Edstrom is 6'8", 225, and skates very well.
He was a unit.
To me, Edstrom's a guy that he's playing first-line minutes with Brodzinski.
Yeah.
For his size, moves around pretty well.
Absolutely.
Rempe, too, I think probably not as good of a skater, but I think saw clear intention to play physical. So I think two guys that I saw a joke on Twitter after one of the scrums that the Rangers got into, call up Rempe, and it's like he's going to be a guy that, like, yeah, you'd be able to dish out some stuff and probably get into some scrums. But I think two guys that keep an eye on a little bit there. Dylan Garand in net. Hartford's been getting great goaltending. Louis Domingue's been the better of the two, but Garand's the prospect, and Steve Smith and Brennan Othmann both gave a ton of credit to Garand. I thought he played pretty well in that Providence game, and he's a guy that's played well. So getting some good goaltending, again, a guy that's fourth in the depth chart, so probably don't have to worry about him. And then Matthew Robertson, right? That's a second-round pick that there's been a lot of conversations about him. He's been playing fine. I don't think he's taken the leap that people were hoping he'd take, and again, the benefit is that the Rangers probably don't need a ton of guys in the HL to step up right now, especially with how well Zach Jones has played in Adam Fox's absence. But just thought we'd give you an update on some Hartford guys. I don't know if you have any final thoughts as we wrap this up.
I mean, I would absolutely keep an eye on Robertson for no reason other than the fact that he has been, off and on a part of that power play unit, which we saw the other night is one of the best power play units in the NHL, and cashed in on every power play opportunity they got. Well, not all of them, but my point being is got 2 or 3 power play goals the night that we saw them.
Got a lot of good looks.
Got a lot of really good looks. So I think if there's ever a chance for, a young second rounder to grow and develop and get better, it's going to be on a power play unit like Hartford has.
And I will say Robertson turning it up a little bit as of late, points in 5 of his last 6 games. And, as we bring this to a close, Hartford playing great hockey, and it's cool to see the turnaround that they have had from a few years ago, especially now. We didn't really get into this too much in this report, but I mean, for interim head coach Steve Smith, he's now a couple games since the Providence game, just 7 games into his tenure as interim head coach since Chris Knobloch got picked up and snagged by the Oilers. And this is a Wolfpack team that
is second in the Eastern Conference.
Second in the Eastern Conference, 12-4-2. A few years ago, Hartford was a mess. And so, you've seen a little bit of a rebirth here with Hartford. They seem to be one of the best teams in the AHL. A lot of good stuff going on. I don't think this is the only time that we're going to be going up to Hartford, Jack. I know we've had musings about, going back up, so we don't exactly know when that is, but
we had a great time. I mean, I definitely want to go back. I'm looking forward to going back. And, the other thing is, to all viewers, if you're in the general area, go watch a Hartford Wolfpack game.
They're fun.
It's a lot of fun, and I think that
their
team,
mascot's awesome.
Their mascot was one of the most fun mascots I've ever seen.
Great skater.
Great.
You want to talk about skating ability?
Yeah.
Their
So can we
mascot
just mention that right before we cut this off? That mascot in his huge mascot suit that I can't imagine is super lightweight came out before the game flying on skates. It was he was skating so fast. That was insane.
Looked like that scene from Miracle, giving it his all.
Yeah.
But that will do it for our very special edition Hartford Wolfpack Report. Lou Orlando, Jack Warner, giving you everything you need to know about the Rangers AHL affiliate, and that will do it for us. As always, this is a production of WFEV Sports. Take it easy, everybody.